Since the release of my last video, moving to Calgary and leaving Toronto, a few of my audience asked me to produce another more detailed video on moving to Calgary, because they're also thinking about moving to there, whether it's from Toronto or another place. So I spent a few days collecting my thoughts on moving to Calgary and did my research and made this video. If you are interested, please continue to watch. But before we start, please click the like button and smash that subscribe button somewhere on your screen for YouTube algorithm. You should not see any ads right now, and this is the only thing I'd like to ask you to do in return for watching this video, on which I spend hours and hours on scripting, filming, and editing. If you enjoyed watching, leave your comments below and let me know what you're interested in watching in my future videos. Thank you. I'd like to create more value-adding videos and share with you so that you can learn something from them. Let's get started without further ado. I guess in this video we should talk more about the things that we didn't discuss in the earlier video, like career opportunities and places where you can rent or purchase a home in the city. Let's look at the population growth first, because population growth determines how fast a city is growing or shrinking, and how much value you'll gain by moving to there. Whether you're thinking about real estate investments or just purely wondering if a housing price will increase in the near future in a certain city. Let's have a look at Calgary now. The metro area of the city has 1.547 million people in 2020, which is 2.25% increase from 2019. And it has been experiencing 2.4 to 2.8% population growth year over year in the past 5 years. It's predicted that the city population growth will decline slightly in the next decades or so, but the total population will grow up to 1.688 million by 2025 and 1.779 million by 2030. In comparison, Toronto metro area has about 6.197 million, slightly more than 4 times bigger than Calgary in 2022. Which is 0.94% increase from 2019, and a lot less compared with that of Calgary. This means, relatively speaking by percentages, Calgary is growing faster than Toronto. Although by absolute number, Toronto is growing faster. That's 43,000 versus 58,000 in the case of 2020. Vancouver looks very similar to Toronto and less than 1% growth rate and decreasing. So it looks like that people are swarming into Calgary these days. Next, let's take a look at the career opportunities. Of course, the city was built on the booming of the energy sector in the province at first, especially oil and gas, and sensitive to cyclical changes of external environment. That means in good years, when oil and gas prices are high, it's easier to find a job in the city. Whereas in the bad years, when their prices are low, the unemployment in the city is usually higher than the other cities in the country. 2020 is an example. Pandemic hit, oil price dropped, and huge amount of people lost their jobs in Calgary. However, the city has a lot more to offer than just energy-related positions in terms of career opportunities. They have financial companies, accounting firm, IT, and legal, etc. In addition, tourism is also another big source of income. Of course, before this goddamn pandemic. I'm sure that tourism is going to recover quickly once this virus goes away. That's likely to happen by the end of this year or next year, based on the current rate of vaccination for COVID-19. Now let's take a look at some statistics regarding various industries in the city, because numbers won't lie, although interpretation might. Let's get some reports from calgary.ca, which is the website of City of Calgary. All these numbers are about Calgary metro area, which is almost the same as the greater Calgary area we're talking about here. This graph shows us employment by different industries this year. As you can see from this graph, wholesale and retail trade, which includes buying food, clothes, or other necessities, putting gas into the car, getting a new pair of glasses, or simply browsing a mall, is the largest, 14% of the total Calgary employment. Healthcare and social assistance is 12.9%. Professional, scientific, and technical services, in which the main components are legal system, like accounting, tax preparation, bookkeeping, and payroll, architectural, engineering, design, computer science system, management, scientific and technical consulting, scientific research development, and advertising, public relations, etc., all together make up 10.7%. Construction, 9%, transportation and warehousing, 6.9%, educational services, 6.8%, financial, insurance and real estate and leasing, 6%, accommodation and food services, 5.7%, manufacturing, 5%, and all other takes the rest. So our takeaway from this graph is that Calgary is not a monocolor town of oil, gas, and mining work, but the biggest hub of wide range of industries located in the southern Alberta. Here's a forecast by various industries for the next few years. It's predicted that the accommodation and food service will grow the largest in the next 3 years by 39.8% over the 3-year period. Next is arts, entertainment, recreation by 30.8%, transportation and warehousing by 13.9%, professional, scientific, and technical services by 11.4%, retail trade 9.9%, finance, insurance, real estate, rental and leasing and building, business and other sports services altogether by 6.7%, construction by 6.2%, healthcare and social assistance by 5.9%, primary and utilities by 5.4%. So this means that almost anyone with decent training in his or her major should be able to find a well-paying job in a short period of time. And Calgary's labor productivity is the highest in the country. That means Calgary employees on average are producing the highest GDP per capita across the nation. Personal income per capita, of course, is the highest in Canada. Also, millionaires per capita is the highest. Almost 118 people are millionaire per 100,000 people with average income of 1.49 million. That means Calgary has the highest density of millionaires in the country per unit number of population, not by geographic area. The city's downtown commercial district is very similar to Toronto's. There you see all the big brand names that you would see in Toronto and Vancouver, like the top 5 banks in Canada and the big 4 like PwC, KPMG, EY, and Deloitte, as well as consulting firms like McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, and others. There might not be as many IT firms as in Toronto, but there is still a decent number of them, like IBM. In terms of healthcare, there are Alberta Health Services, LifeMark Health Group, CareWest, Alberta Precision Laboratories, etc. So as long as you are well educated and well trained in schools, you should be able to find a decent job fairly quickly once you move to there. Now let's look at the places where you can purchase or rent a home in the city. Driving to the city center almost from anywhere in the city would take only less than 40 minutes. Typically it would take 10 to 30 minutes depending on how far you live from the city center. In this case, I'm measuring the driving distance between the Rocky Ridge community located in the northwestern part of the city and McKinsey in the city center, downtown. It takes about only 22 to 35 minutes during rush hour. Gosh, that's so much better than Toronto and Vancouver, where most people spend on average 45 minutes on commuting to work. I never lived very long in any US megacities, but I can imagine that they're not significantly better than Toronto and Vancouver in terms of commuting to work. Well, hopefully Hyperloop can fix this issue soon. So in Calgary, commuting to work should not be a massive factor to consider when you buy or rent a home. So where should one purchase a home in Calgary? Hopefully a detached house with 1 or 2 large garages. I've studied it. First, it depends on your budget. Second is your community preference. Third is where you and your family work. Now let's look at this community map of the city that I got from the internet. Some of these are kind of a stereotype thing, but this is easy to remember for people who never been in Calgary. Rich people are mostly living in the west of the city, where the housing price is highest. Like Esplanade has the average detached housing price of 1.5 million. But one should be able to get a great home under 1 million in the surrounding community, which is also good and rich. This is the most expensive area. Let's talk up from the most expensive area to the least expensive area. The northwestern part of the city is where kind of rich people live, but of course not as rich as those who live in Aspenwood community. University of Calgary locates there as well, so the surrounding area is quite expensive. The average price in this area is about $500,000. Of course, the further away from the city center, the cheaper. Calgary International Airport is in the northeastern part of the city. The eastern part of the city is where mostly blue-collar worker lives. Most of the warehouses are in the southeast. A lot of young professionals live very next to the city center. Of course, these are relative and communities are different even from one block to the next within any part of the city that we just talked. When you are looking for a place to rent or buy, you might want to take a closer look. Hopefully this graph gives you a good understanding of the city. That is pretty much it about the communities. There are currently 5 Costco wholesale fairly evenly distributed across the city, which I think you might consider as one of the factors as you buy a home. The last thing I'd like to mention in this video is another good thing living in Alberta, which I also mentioned in my earlier video. That's the purchase tax in the province is only about 5%. I know US folks would raise their eyebrows, but come on, this is Canada, where healthcare is free. Alright, that's the end of my video, and hopefully you learned something from it. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you and see you next time.